This is huge as the Vikings have been linked to a Pro Bowl defensive tackle to solve and fill the gaps on the defensive line for next season. And a busy draft combine continues as the team requests an interview with an eye-opening defensive prospect. We're going to be breaking down all of that in this episode of Vikings Digest, but first make sure to hit that subscribe button and click the bell icon so you don't miss any and all updates surrounding the Vikings as we head through this draft combine. And with that, let's hop into the first topic of the day, which is two-time Pro Bowl defensive tackle is on the trade block. So before we hop into that, we know that the Vikings had a great season this year. However, what hindered the Vikings most toward the end of the season, what ended one of the best runs we've ever witnessed as fans, was a serious weakness in both trenches. That's why over the course of the next 60-ish days, General Manager Kwesi Adofo-Mensah has made it clear defensive tackle will be a priority position. That's where the news coming from this morning that two-time Pro Bowl defensive tackle Jonathan Allen is hitting the trade market from the Washington Commanders, and it got the attention of Vikings Twitter. Although he played just 8 games last year, Allen has accumulated 401 tackles, 118 quarterback hits, 60 tackles for loss, and 42 total sacks in his 8-year NFL career, over 109 games. And this was made official in a tweet that we saw from Ari Mayrov, who is a reporter on the Washington Commanders, saying that they have granted permission to Pro Bowl defensive tackle Jonathan Allen to seek a trade per multiple reports. Allen is in the final year of his contract and none of the money is guaranteed. And as far as that contract goes, it's not as though the Commanders are necessarily putting Allen out there. He is on the final year of a 4-year contract that carries a cap hit of $22.35 million in 2025. But he's looking for a new deal, and being he is 30 years old coming off of injury, the extension price shouldn't be impossibly high like it might with some other free agents out there. The cost to land Allen is uncertain, but it's not expected to be anything more than a day 3 pick, maybe day 2 if a bidding war takes place. That's probably unlikely given his age and the term remaining on his deal. However, it's very nice that Minnesota has this option to consider where it's not going to bring too heavy of a cap hit. And this is coming where Minnesota, it's being planned that they are going to have extensions coming for Jonathan Grenard and Andrew Van Ginkel because they seem to be settling into Minnesota and not having any plans of going anywhere else. And it wouldn't be unlike Minnesota to bring in Allen on this deal, trade off a few draft picks, because this draft doesn't look like it's very flashy for Minnesota or for a lot of prospects that Minnesota will be looking at, one of which we are going to jump into in a second. But if they are able to kind of bargain some of this draft capital where they bring in Allen, where they can re-sign him or extend him to extend him for a deal that might not be as expensive as some other defensive tackles out there, I really like how that could benefit Minnesota's cap situation, and they could save some money and go out and get an absolute dog in the trenches. And this is also bolstered down by Darren Wolfson speaking on Score North, saying, "Here's what I would tell you. My sense is that he would have all sorts of interest in being a Minnesota Viking. A lot of players would have interest in being Minnesota Viking. They have set up an infrastructure that lends itself to a lot of players having interest in being there. Whether the Vikings want to play ball, whether the Vikings reciprocate that interest remains to be seen. To suggest that Allen would have interest in the Vikings, I would say you are accurate in doing so." Right here, there is the rub as far as why you can go out and get Jonathan Allen in this situation, because he has interest in coming to Minnesota. This is an organization and a team. We were just rated number 1 in game day experience. We have been rated number 1, but last year, as far as organization, we were the only team that got a perfect score, basically across the board, ranking in top 5 in almost all categories, and ranking number 1 in at least 3 or 4 of them. So Minnesota, we have built a culture here where players want to come play for us. And if this comes not a cap hit, but as a deal cut where guys can take a bit of a deal and not get paid as much, but play for an organization they want to play with. We know Harrison Smith has taken a pay cut many times to stay with his organization when he could have easily gone and played with any other team, but he wanted to stay in Minnesota. He wanted to retire Minnesota Viking. He wants to bring a Lombardi to Minnesota. Hopefully he's able to stick around one more year to do that, but we've seen evidence before of guys taking pay cuts to play in Minnesota. And when looking at Allen's stats, he is definitely warranting a very good price tag. He's definitely had the stats to show for it. Like we said, 401 total tackles over 109 games played, 241 solo tackles, 160 assisted, 42 sacks. He's got 2 forced fumbles with recoveries on top of that, 1 interception, which that doesn't always happen for a defensive tackle as well. So he knows how to create pressure, create opportunities. He knows how to stuff the run. This is a guy who can be a difference maker in the trenches, and this is somebody that I think Minnesota should absolutely consider going after. We need someone to pair with Harrison Phillips. this could be the guy. Jerry Tillery, he goes away and tests free agency. That's okay, because this is definitely an upgrade regardless if we had Tillery on the roster or not. As much as I like Jerry Tillery, I loved him when he played for Notre Dame as well, but that was for many years ago, and now we have a chance to bring in an absolute dog in Jonathan Allen. Thinking about this defensive front where we would have Jonathan Grenard, Jonathan Allen, and as well as Andrew Van Ginkel and Harrison Phillips as well to bolster that down. And then you bring in a guy like Dallas Turner to alternate on the edge as well. This could be a very scary defensive front for Minnesota that teams would finally be able to fear again. We haven't had a fearsome defense since the days of Danielle Hunter and Everson Griffen on the edges, where we were able to get guys that could just create problems for teams and create pressure. That was a big thing for Minnesota as to why they had to blitz so much this season. Brian Flores did not trust in his front pass rushers, where we needed to bring a few extra guys in the typical four so that we could create some pressure and some opportunities for our guys. As a result of that, though, when he went against quarterbacks who were really good against pressure and blitz, left a lot of guys shorthanded in coverage and left a lot of big plays to be had. We saw that on full display against the Rams and the Lions. But what do you guys think of all this? Would you guys like the idea of bringing Jonathan Allen in, or would you rather us go and see if we can get somebody else in free agency? Let us know what you guys think down in the comments. So that's going to take us into our second topic of the day, which is the Vikings request a prospect interview. Now, per source, the Minnesota Vikings have a formal meeting scheduled with Florida interior D lineman Cam Jackson in Indianapolis. He's an athletic and powerful defensive tackle, had an excellent week at the Senior Bowl, and is another name to become familiar with a loaded defensive lineman class. So this is someone that Minnesota, they seem to like what they've saw from the Senior Bowl. They're liking what they see from the Combine out of this guy, and now they want to request an interview with him. And per Tyler Forness of A to Z Minnesota, he says Jackson is a massive run stopper who could be an impactful nose tackle while providing a little bit of pass rush juice. The Vikings were second in run defense, but 28th against the pass with little to no interior pressure. If they can improve that element on the first and second downs, it would elevate an already great unit. This is something that I literally just was saying about how we don't seem to trust in our pass rush when we aren't blitzing. And that is shown where we were 28th against the pass with little to no interior pressure. And with Jonathan Allen being out there, if we can go out and get Jonathan Allen and draft a guy like Cam Jackson as well, I think that would go a long way towards making sure that Minnesota is even better at stopping the run, but now we can create some pressure on the pass front as well. Jackson played his first 3 collegiate seasons with the Memphis Tigers before transferring to the Florida Gators in the SEC in 2023. He appeared in 57 games with 55 starts to finish his career with 120 total tackles, 4 sacks, 11 tackles for loss, and 5 pass breakups. Sacks aren't as high as you would typically like to see, but a lot of tackles as well, and 11 tackles for loss is nothing to scoff at as well. Drafting Jackson makes a lot of sense, especially if the Vikings lose Jerry Tillery and or Jonathan Bullard in free agency. He's a huge dude at 6'6", 334 pounds, that also has solid length to stack and shed offensive linemen in the run game. His massive size tends to give him problems when it comes to keeping his pad level down, which allows offensive linemen to win reps by neutralizing him. So yeah, he's a big boy, but sometimes that size can come at a bit of a cost. Right now, he's likely to be a day 3 pick, which is good for the Vikings, who currently have 2 fifth-round picks, which could be traded if we go out and get Jonathan Allen. Minnesota would certainly take the developmental approach with him. It's more unlikely than it is likely that Jackson would have an immediate impact, but he could certainly develop into a useful player down the road, which would be an ideal situation for a day 3 pick and another selection that Kwesi Adofo-Mensah can hang his hat on. We know that Kwesi has been very active at the draft. He's been very good at drafting as well. So if we do end up holding on to these 5th round picks and can go and get him on day 3, I think it would be a very valuable asset. Where we saw Dallas Turner, we brought him in last year. He didn't have an immediate long-term impact. When he showed up, he made the most of his opportunities. But was he getting all the reps and all the starts as well? Not necessarily. This could be a situation where Jackson can be in that same role where he gets a little bit of opportunities here and there, shines in those opportunities, and proves why he should get more. But as you develop him throughout the seasons, after the first year into the second year, that's when you can start to see a little bit more of him, especially if we go out and get a guy like Jonathan Allen. If we go out and get him, he'll definitely be sitting behind him. But Allen, coming off of injury, offers a nice little safety valve where you can bring him in, pair with Harrison Phillips, where you can learn under him as well and get going as well to try and create more opportunities for us, because this is a pass rush that needs to be reliable, where we can only send 4. We saw with the Chiefs, where even a team as good as the Chiefs you can create problems for them by just sending pressure. And the Eagles were able to do that without blitzing more than once or twice throughout the Super Bowl. So if Minnesota can have a pass rush like that, where we don't need to send 5-6 guys all the time, or even 7 in some cases like we saw, we can trust in those 4 or even 3 sometimes to get creative and get pass rush to the quarterback, create pressure, and make sure that our guys can drop back into coverage and create turnovers, which is what we were amazing at doing all year. It's crazy how we ranked 28th in the pass when we were able to get an interception in every single game this season. So what do we got to do that to make sure that continues to happen? Trust in your pass rushers. Make sure that you can have more guys drop into coverage. Trust in our excellent secondary, which I know we have to re-sign a lot of guys, but if you go out and get a guy like Jackson and Allen, that can go a long way towards bolstering this down, not only for the short term, but also for the long term, as far as getting an older guy and a younger guy. But what do you guys think of all this? What do you guys think of Cam Jackson and his draft upside potential? Would love to hear what you guys have to say down in the comments, as well as the whole Jonathan Allen situation. Let us know down in the comments. But that's going to do it for this episode of Vikings Digest. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell icon so you don't miss any of the new updates. We're going to be back later on tomorrow with another video. But I've been your host, Griffin. Take care.